The blind tracker, desert justice. The crack of a rifle split the morning in half. Sarah Cole dropped the coffee pot. It shattered on the porch boards, dark liquid pooling between the cracks like something bleeding. Buster was already on his feet. No bark, no whimper, just that low rumble in his chest, the one that started somewhere behind his ribs and never quite made it to his throat. She put her hand on his head. His eyes, clouded, white as river stones, stared at nothing and everything at once. Easy, boy. But Buster wasn't easy. He hadn't been easy since the fire. 3 years back, a brush fire tore through the eastern ridge of the property and swallowed the barn in 11 minutes flat. Sarah was inside, pinned under a collapsed beam, screaming into smoke so thick it turned her voice into a whisper. Buster went in. A 60-pound mutt with shepherd bones and cattle dog stubbornness. He went in the way you'd walk into a church. No hesitation, just purpose. He dragged her out by the sleeve of her jacket. His teeth locked so hard they left marks she still carries. But the heat took his eyes. The vet in Tucson said the corneas melted like candle wax. His exact words. Sarah never went back to that vet. After that, something shifted, not just in Buster. Between them, Sarah became his compass. She'd tap her boot twice on the porch when she was to his left, 3 times when she was moving away. 1 tap meant stay. No one taught them this language. It just grew, the way roots find water, blind, patient, certain. And Buster? He became something the desert hadn't seen before. He could hear a rattlesnake coil from 40 feet. He'd catch the scent of rain 2 hours before the first cloud darkened the Catalina foothills. He'd tilt his head sideways and freeze, and 30 seconds later, a coyote would cross the wash a quarter-mile out. Sarah's father, Bill, a retired Pima County deputy who'd spent 30 years reading the land, said he'd never seen anything like it. That dog doesn't need eyes, Bill told her once, leaning against the fence post with his 3rd cores in hand. He sees with everything else. Their ranch sat 14 miles east of Sells, Arizona, on a dirt road that didn't have a name, just a number the Postal Service gave up on delivering to. 40 acres of dust, mesquite, and silence. The nearest neighbor was a Tohono O'odham family who kept goats and minded their own business. The nearest town was an hour's drive on a road that could flatten a tire if you blinked. It was the kind of place where nothing happened. Until it did. That morning, the morning the coffee pot broke, Sarah stood on the porch and watched a dust cloud crawl along the southern fence line. 2 vehicles, moving fast, no headlights, even though dawn was still just a bruise on the horizon. Buster's growl deepened. His ears rotated, one forward, one back, like satellite dishes locking onto a signal. Sarah reached for her phone. No signal. Hadn't been one since the tower in Ajo went down 2 days ago and nobody bothered to fix it. The dust cloud stopped. Then it moved again, toward the house. She looked down at Buster. His whole body was pointed south, rigid as a fence post. Every muscle locked into something older than training. Instinct, the kind that doesn't need eyes. "What do you hear, boy?" He didn't answer. He didn't need to. The engines were getting louder. They came through the gate like they owned the place. 2 trucks, a black Chevy Silverado with Texas plates and a tan Ford F-250 caked in desert mud. 4 men, maybe 5. Hard to count when they moved that fast and the sun was still fighting to clear the mountains. Sarah backed toward the door. Buster pressed against her calf, a wall of fur and tension. The first man out was tall, sunburned, wearing a tactical vest over a sweat-stained t-shirt. He carried a Sig Sauer on his hip like it was part of his skeleton. His name, she'd learn later, was Devlin. Ex-military, dishonorably discharged. The kind of man who smiled with his teeth and nothing else. The last one out was different. Older, maybe 55. Clean shave, pressed shirt, boots that had never touched dirt before today. He didn't carry a visible weapon, but the other men moved around him the way water moves around a rock, carefully. His name was Harlan Cross, and he wasn't muscle. He was money. A former logistics contractor out of El Paso who'd found that moving fentanyl paid better than moving military cargo. Devlin gave the orders, but Cross decided which orders were worth giving. He stood by the F-250 and watched the whole thing with his arms folded. Didn't raise his voice, didn't touch anyone, just watched. And that was worse, because the men who watch are the ones who've already calculated every outcome and decided you're not worth the math. "Morning, sweetheart." Devlin said it the way you'd talk to a waitress you planned to stiff on the tip. "We need your truck, and you're coming with us." "I'm not going anywhere." Devlin tilted his head. Yeah, you are. It happened fast. Two men flanked the porch. One grabbed Sarah's arm. She fought, bit one of them hard enough to taste copper, but they had 70 pounds on her each. Buster lunged. He caught the closest man's forearm and didn't let go. The sound was wet, ugly, fabric tearing, then skin. The man screamed and kicked Buster in the ribs. Once, twice. The third kick sent him skidding off the porch steps and into the dirt. "Shoot the damn dog!" the bitten man yelled, clutching his arm. Devlin looked at Buster, lying on his side, dust coating his fur, those white, ruined eyes staring up at nothing. He laughed, not the kind of laugh that means something is funny, the kind that tells you exactly who you're dealing with. "Leave it. Look at him. He's blind." Devlin crouched, studied Buster like a man examining a broken tool. "He won't last an hour out here without her. Sun'll cook him by noon." Cross spoke for the first time, quiet, almost gentle. "Shoot the dog, Devlin. Loose ends bleed." Devlin waved him off. "It's a blind mutt. He's already dead." Cross looked at Buster for a long moment. Something behind his eyes said he knew better, but he turned away and got back in the truck. They dragged Sarah to the Silverado. She screamed Buster's name, kept screaming it until the truck door slammed and the sound went dead. Buster lay in the dirt. He didn't move for a long time. Blood trickled from a gash above his left eye where the boot had caught him. The dust settled around him like a shroud. Then the trucks pulled away, south, toward the border, toward a checkpoint on Route 86 where a dead DEA informant's testimony was about to make 4 men very famous or very imprisoned. They needed Sarah as insurance, a hostage, a bargaining chip with a human face. Buster raised his head. The engines faded, but the sound wasn't gone, not for him. He could still hear the differential whine of the Silverado, the uneven rumble of the F-250's exhaust, a cracked manifold leaking on the left side. He could smell Sarah's shampoo, lavender and something chemical, the cheap stuff from the Walmart in Casa Grande, still hanging in the air like a ghost that refused to leave. He stood, slow. His ribs screamed, but his legs held. He turned south, pointed his ruined eyes at the desert like a compass needle finding north, and he started walking. Bill Cole pulled into the ranch at 7:42 a.m., 40 minutes late because the gas station in Sells was out of regular, and he had to argue with the attendant about premium prices for a 2003 Dodge Ram that didn't deserve premium anything. He knew something was wrong before he killed the engine. The front gate was open. Sarah never left the gate open. She'd grown up on stories about javelinas getting into the vegetable garden and had developed a religious devotion to latches. Sarah? The porch told the story. Broken coffee pot, boot prints, at least 3 different treads, all heavy, all wrong. A smear of blood on the railing that wasn't old enough to have dried completely. No Sarah, no truck. Bill's hands went cold. The kind of cold that starts in your chest and spreads outward, like ice cracking across a pond. He reached for his phone. No signal. He reached for the radio in the kitchen. Dead. Someone had ripped the cord from the wall. That's when he heard it. A bark, single, sharp, coming from the south side of the property. He ran, rounded the house, and found Buster standing at the edge of the wash, facing the open desert. The dog's fur was matted with blood and dirt. His left side was swollen where the kicks had landed, but he wasn't lying down. He wasn't whimpering. He was barking at the desert. "Buster! Buster, come here, come on, boy." The dog didn't turn, didn't acknowledge Bill's voice. Just kept barking, measured, rhythmic, aimed, like he was calling something, or answering something only he could hear. Bill grabbed his collar. Buster pulled, not the pull of a scared dog running from danger, the pull of a working dog on a scent, deliberate, south. "She's out there, isn't she?" Buster stopped barking. His ears went flat, then forward. He whined once, a thin, high sound that Bill had never heard from him, and pulled again. Bill Cole was 63 years old. Bad knee, worse back. He'd been retired from the Pima County Sheriff's Department for 4 years, and the most dangerous thing he'd done since was burn a pot roast. He didn't have a plan. He didn't have backup. He had a blind dog and a Remington 870 that lived in the gun rack of his truck. He looked at Buster. The dog's whole body was trembling. Not from fear, from urgency. Like every second standing still was a second wasted. "All right." Bill's voice cracked. He cleared his throat. "All right, boy. Show me." He loaded the Remington, grabbed 2 bottles of water from the truck, one for him, One he poured into a hubcap for Buster. The dog drank fast, sloppy, water running off his muzzle. Then he was moving again, south, into the wash, into the sand. The Sonoran Desert in July is not a place that forgives mistakes. By 8 a.m., the ground temperature was already pushing 140 degrees Fahrenheit. The air tasted like hot metal. Saguaros stood like sentries along the ridgeline, their arms raised in permanent surrender. Buster moved through it like he was reading a map written in a language only he understood. He'd stop, tilt his head, catch something in the air, then change direction by 2 degrees and keep going. His paws left tracks in the sand next to tire marks that were already blurring in the wind. Bill followed. His boots were already full of grit. Sweat ran into his eyes and turned the desert into a watercolor. If you're still with me, comment below. Where are you watching from? Because what happened next in that desert, I still have trouble believing it myself. By mile 6, Buster was slowing down. Not gradually, suddenly, like a battery hitting zero. His back legs started dragging, leaving shallow trenches in the sand. His breathing turned into something ugly, fast, shallow, the kind of panting that doesn't cool, just exhausts. The gash above his eye had crusted shut with dust and dried blood, and the swelling on his left side had turned the skin underneath his fur a dark, angry purple. Bill poured the last of the water into his palm. Buster lapped at it, but half of it ran off his tongue and into the sand. Gone. Then the rattlesnake. It came from under a creosote bush 3 feet to Buster's right. No warning, or maybe there was, and Buster's ears were too full of heat and exhaustion to catch it in time. The rattle hit the air like static, fast and close. Buster flinched left, too slow. The snake struck and caught the loose skin on his right shoulder. Not deep, not a full bite, more of a graze, a fang dragged across muscle. But the venom doesn't care about depth. Buster yelped, the first real sound of pain he'd made since the porch. He stumbled sideways, hit the ground, and didn't get up. Bill killed the snake with the butt of the Remington. 2 strikes. Then he was on his knees next to Buster, hands on the dog's chest, feeling the heartbeat go fast, too fast, and then start to stutter. No, 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 don't you do this. Don't you quit on me. Buster's breathing went shallow. His legs twitched. His clouded eyes were open, but they'd gone still. No movement, no tracking, nothing. Like the lights behind them had finally gone out. Bill sat in the sand holding a blind dog, in the middle of nowhere, with no water, no phone, and no plan. The sun was directly overhead, and it felt like God had opened an oven door and pointed it straight down. I wish I could tell you I know what happened next in medical terms. I don't. The snake grazed him. That's what the vet said later. Partial envenomation. Enough to shut a dog down for an hour, not enough to kill him. But out there, in that heat, with those injuries, an hour on the ground was a death sentence. Buster lay still for 43 minutes. Bill counted. He sat there and counted every minute because he didn't know what else to do. At minute 44, Buster's nose twitched. Just once. A small contraction, like a reflex. Then again. His nostrils flared and his head turned, barely an inch, toward the south. Bill leaned close. What is it, boy? What do you got? The wind had shifted, coming from the southeast now, carrying something across the flats. Buster's nose kept working, pulling at the air in short, desperate bursts. And then his front legs moved, not standing, crawling, dragging his body forward through the sand, belly flat, ribs scraping rock, an inch at a time. He'd caught the scent again. Sarah. Somewhere out there, the wind was carrying her to him. Bill stood up. His knee screamed. He ignored it. Okay, boy. He bent down and lifted Buster, 60 pounds of dead weight, blood and sand, and draped the dog across his shoulders like a feed sack. The Remington hung from one hand. His legs buckled once, held. He started walking south. Buster's nose kept working from Bill's shoulders, twitching left, twitching right, and every time it twitched, Bill adjusted his direction by a degree. 2 old broken things navigating the desert together. One couldn't see, the other could barely walk, and neither one was stopping. Sarah counted the men. 5. Devlin was the boss. The bitten one, a thick-necked guy they called Roach, was the loud one, the one who kicked Buster, the one whose arm was now wrapped in a torn t-shirt soaked through with red. The others were quieter. A driver who never spoke, a young one who kept checking his phone like he expected it to ring, and Cross, sitting in the corner of the mine on an overturned crate, cleaning his fingernails with a pocket knife, looking at Sarah the way an accountant looks at a spreadsheet. They drove south for an hour, then turned east on a road that wasn't a road, just two ruts in the caliche that led to an abandoned copper mine 8 miles north of the border. The entrance was boarded up, but someone had pulled the planks recently. Fresh nails and old wood. Inside, cots, water jugs, a portable generator humming in the dark. These men had been here before. This wasn't panic, it was a plan. They tied Sarah to a chair with zip ties. Roach wanted to tape her mouth. Devlin said no. She screams out here, who's gonna hear? The scorpions? Cross looked up from his fingernails. She's not going to scream, she's smarter than that. He said it to Devlin, but he was looking at Sarah. Aren't you? Sarah didn't scream. She didn't answer Cross either, but something about the way he studied her, patient, measured, like a man who'd done this calculus before, scared her more than Devlin's gun ever could. Devlin was a dog off its leash. Cross was the one who decided when to let go of the leash, she thought, and she started leaving pieces of herself behind. A thread pulled from the hem of her shirt dropped near the mine entrance. A heel dragged deep in the soft sand outside the door, leaving a groove that pointed east. Her hair tie, the blue elastic one she'd had since college, slipped off her wrist and into the dirt near a creosote bush 30 feet from the entrance. Small things. The kind of things only someone who knew her would notice. The kind of things Buster would find. Cross caught her pulling the thread. He watched her drop it. He didn't say a word, just folded his pocket knife, slid it into his shirt pocket, and walked outside to check the perimeter. When he came back, he told Devlin they should move locations. Why? Nobody knows we're here. Humor me. Devlin didn't move. Cross didn't push, but he started packing his bag. The quiet ones always have an exit plan. Outside, the desert was doing what the desert does, trying to erase everything. Wind smoothed the tire tracks. Sand filled the boot prints. The sun baked the ground until it cracked like old leather. But scent doesn't work that way. Not for Buster. Miles behind them, fewer now, closing. Bill was carrying a blind dog on his shoulders, following the twitch of a nose that refused to stop working. They'd found the spot where the trucks had stopped to change a tire. Buster smelled the rubber, the lug nut grease, and underneath it all, the faintest trace of lavender shampoo. From Bill's shoulders, his nose locked south, and Bill turned to match. That night, the desert went cold. 40 degrees in 6 hours. That's the Sonoran for you. Bill set Buster down carefully behind a rock outcropping and built a fire with creosote branches. The dog was standing again, shaky, favoring his right side where the snake had caught him, but standing. His nose was working the cold night air, and whatever it was finding kept his ears rotating. Bill sat next to him, hands shaking, not from cold. I don't know if we're going to make it, Buster. He said it the way you say things to a dog, not because they understand the words, but because you need to hear yourself say them. But she's out there, and you know where. Buster pressed his body against Bill's leg, held it there. Somewhere in the mine, Roach was yelling about his arm. Cross had finished packing his bag and was sitting by the entrance, watching the dark. And outside, in that darkness, something was moving. No footsteps, no sound, just a shifting in the air that the young one noticed first. Something's out there. Devlin checked the perimeter. Flashlight. Nothing. Cross didn't check. He just zipped his bag shut. I told you we should have moved. You're all jumping at coyotes. Go back inside. But it wasn't a coyote, and by morning they'd know that. Buster reached the mine at 4 a.m. He'd walked the last 2 miles on his own. Bill had set him down when the dog's legs started moving with purpose again. Not the shaky, post-venom stagger from before, but the locked-in, deliberate movement of an animal that knows exactly where it's going. The snake graze had swollen his right shoulder into a hard knot, and he carried that leg slightly off the ground, moving on 3 legs and pure stubbornness. Bill was 200 yards behind, limping, the Remington across his back, running on nothing but adrenaline and the kind of stubbornness that runs in families from this part of Arizona. Buster didn't approach the entrance. He circled, wide, slow. His nose caught the generator exhaust, the human sweat, the gun oil, and somewhere underneath all of it, Sarah, her skin, her shampoo, her fear, which smelled different from everything else, sharper, like copper and salt. He found the hair tie first, pressed his nose against it and held there for 3 full seconds. Then he moved to the groove in the sand, followed it to the mine entrance, sat, waited. But something happened that Bill didn't see, couldn't have seen from 200 yards in the dark. Buster sat at that mine entrance, and he stopped. Not paused. Stopped. His ears went flat against his skull. His tail dropped. He lowered his head until his chin touched the ground, and he whimpered. A long, thin sound that came from somewhere deeper than pain. His whole body started trembling. Not the urgency tremor from the ranch. Something else. Something that looked, to anyone who's ever loved a dog, like fear. He could smell what was inside. 5 men. Sweat and adrenaline and gun oil. The metallic sharpness of ammunition. The ozone-like scent of electronics. He could hear heartbeats. 5 of them. And the rhythm was wrong. Not sleeping. Alert. Armed. And behind all of that, Sarah. Crying. He could hear the catch in her breathing. The salt of her tears carried on the stale air pushing through the ventilation shaft. He knew she was in there. And for the first time in 12 miles of desert, snake venom, cracked paws, and broken ribs, Buster hesitated. I don't know what goes through a dog's mind. No one does, no matter what they tell you. But I think, and this is just me sitting here telling you this story, I think Buster knew. Not in words, not in strategy, but in the deep animal way that prey knows when a den belongs to something bigger. He knew that walking into that mine meant pain, maybe the last pain. He lay there for almost 2 minutes, ears flat, chin on the ground, shaking. Then Sarah's voice came through the shaft, muffled, broken. Just one word. Please. She wasn't talking to anyone. She was talking to the dark, to whatever might be listening. Buster's ears came forward. One, then the other. His head lifted. The trembling didn't stop, but his legs moved anyway. He stood up on 3 good legs and 1 swollen one, and he walked toward the ventilation shaft. That's the thing about courage. It's not the absence of fear. It's a 60-pound blind dog shaking so hard his teeth chatter, walking into a mine full of armed men because someone he loves said please. When Bill caught up, breathing like a man twice his age, Buster was already at the ventilation shaft, sitting, waiting, every hair on his back standing straight. How many? Bill whispered. Stupid question. The dog couldn't answer, but somehow the way Buster's body was coiled, tight, controlled, the growl buried so deep it was more vibration than sound, told Bill everything he needed to know. This wasn't going to be easy. Bill studied the mine. 1 entrance. The ventilation shaft on the east side. Rusted grate, big enough for a dog maybe. Darkness inside. These men would have flashlights. Night vision, possibly. That was their advantage. They could see. Then it hit him. They see in the dark with equipment. You just see in the dark. Bill looked at Buster. You've been living in the dark for 3 years. No plan. Just an old deputy, a blind dog, and the one advantage nobody saw coming. In total darkness, Buster was the only one who wasn't handicapped. Bill found the ventilation shaft. The grate came off with 2 hard pulls. The bolts were rusted through. He pointed at the opening. Find her. Buster went in. Silent. His nails, worn down from 12 miles of desert, barely clicked on the stone floor. He moved by echo, by airflow, by the way sound bounced off walls and told him exactly how wide the tunnel was, where it turned, where it opened up. Bill counted to 60. Then he walked to the front entrance, racked the Remington. The sound echoed into the mine like a church bell, and shouted, "This is Bill Cole, former Pima County Sheriff's deputy. You've got my daughter, and I want her back." Inside, chaos. Devlin killed the generator. The lights died. Total darkness. He pulled on night vision goggles. The others scrambled. "Hold positions! He's 1 man!" Cross didn't scramble. He picked up his bag, moved to the back tunnel, and started walking. He'd already done the math. 1 man at the entrance meant someone knew they were here. And if someone knew, more were coming. Time to go. But Buster was already inside. The darkness was his. Every footstep the men took echoed off the stone walls and told him exactly where they stood. Every breath, every heartbeat, every rustle of fabric, a map painted in sound. The young one went first. He was guarding the east tunnel when something hit him from below. 60 pounds of muscle and teeth clamping down on his wrist. He screamed and dropped his weapon. The sound bounced through the mine, and for a second, everyone froze. Roach fired blind. The muzzle flash lit the tunnel for half a second. Enough for Bill to see the entrance and move in. Not enough for anyone to see Buster, who was already gone, already in the next tunnel, already behind the driver, already sinking his teeth into the man's ankle and pulling. Devlin shouted orders that nobody followed. The mine was a cathedral of echoes, and every sound was a lie. Footsteps came from everywhere. The growl, that low, bone-deep growl, seemed to move through the walls themselves. What the hell is that? Cross was in the back tunnel, moving fast, when he heard the growl behind him. Close. He stopped, reached for the pocket knife. The growl stopped too. Silence. Cross took one step. The growl came again, right there, 3 feet away, in the dark, low enough to feel in his chest. He swung the knife, hit nothing. Then 60 pounds of blind fury hit him in the knees and the tunnel floor came up fast. His head struck rock. The bag fell. The knife skittered into the dark. And Buster was on top of him, teeth locked on his forearm, pressing him into the stone with a weight that had nothing to do with his 60 pounds and everything to do with 12 miles of desert and a promise he couldn't break. Cross stopped fighting. He was the smart one. He knew when the math was done. Sarah heard it, tied to the chair in the back chamber, tears cutting through the dust on her face. She heard that growl, and she knew. Buster. She whispered it like a prayer. It was over in 8 minutes. That's what Bill told the Pima County deputies who arrived 2 hours later, called in by a Border Patrol agent who'd finally spotted Bill's truck parked at the edge of the wash with the hazards on. 8 minutes. Devlin on his face with a broken nose from where he'd walked into a support beam trying to chase a sound that wasn't there. Roach unconscious. Buster had hit him low, behind the knees, and the mine floor did the rest. The young one was sitting against the wall, cradling his wrist, crying. The driver had made it 20 feet outside before Bill put the Remington's barrel against his chest and said, "Son, sit down." Cross was in the back tunnel, pinned under a blind dog, with a bite wound on his forearm and a look on his face that Bill had seen before, on men who'd run every calculation and come up with a number they didn't expect. 0. He gave up everything. Every name, every drop house, every contact between Tucson and Nogales. Turned out the dead DEA informant's testimony wasn't the only loose end. Devlin's crew had been running fentanyl through that mine for 9 months, and Cross had been the architect. Routes, payments, distribution. The bust made the evening news in Phoenix, Tucson, and, for one slow news day, CNN. But none of that mattered to Sarah. When Bill cut the zip ties and she fell forward, her hands numb and her wrists bleeding, the first thing she did was call his name. Not shout, not scream, just his name, quiet. The way you call someone you're afraid isn't there anymore. Buster? Silence. 3 seconds. 4. The longest seconds of her life. Then she heard it. Nails on stone. Slow. Uneven. Click, 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 click. 3 legs and a drag. He came around the corner of the tunnel and she saw him, or what was left of him. The gash above his eye had opened for the 3rd time, painting half his face in a dark crust of blood and dust. His right shoulder was swollen to twice its size where the snake had caught him. His paws were cracked open, raw, leaving red prints on the stone floor with every step. His fur was matted with 12 miles of desert. Sand, blood, creosote needles, things that had no business being on a living animal. He was panting so hard his whole body rocked with each breath. His ribs, she could count every one of them now, moved under his skin in a way that made her stomach fold in half. But he was walking, toward her voice, the way he always walked toward her voice. Sarah dropped to the floor. Her knees hit stone and she didn't feel it. She reached for him and her hands were shaking so badly she couldn't hold his face on the first try. She tried again. Got him. Held him. His fur was hot. Fever hot. The skin underneath was tight and wrong. Up close, she could smell the venom wound. Sour, chemical, like something rotting from the inside. She could feel his heartbeat through his chest, and it was too fast, skipping beats, running on fumes. Oh God, Buster, what did they do to you? What did you do? His clouded eyes pointed somewhere past her left shoulder. They'd never point at her again. They couldn't, but his nose found her face, dry, cracked, hot, and he pressed it against her cheek. He breathed her in. One long shaking inhale, like he was making sure she was real. Then his legs gave out. He collapsed into her lap. All 60 pounds of him, just gone, like someone had cut the strings. Sarah caught him and pulled him close, and that's when she broke. Not quiet crying, the kind that comes from somewhere behind your ribs and tears its way out, the kind that sounds like it hurts because it does. Bill stood in the tunnel, the Remington hanging at his side, watching his daughter hold a blind dog in the dark. He put one hand against the mine wall to steady himself. His chin dropped to his chest. He didn't say a word. Didn't need to. Some things are too heavy for language. The vet in Ajo, not the one in Tucson, never the one in Tucson, worked on Buster for 3 hours. IV fluids for the dehydration, antivenin for the snake graze, 12 stitches above his eye, antibiotics for the paw wounds. His ribs were bruised, 2 of them cracked, but not broken. The vet told Sarah he'd need rest. Weeks of it. No running, no desert. And honestly, he said the dog should be dead. The heat alone should have killed him. The venom should have finished the job. He had no medical explanation for why Buster was still breathing. Sarah did. But it wasn't the kind of explanation you put on a chart. Buster was back on the porch in 10 days. Not 4. The vet made sure of that. Sarah carried him outside herself, set him down in his spot, and sat next to him with a new coffee pot. This one was metal, wouldn't break. The Catalina foothills were turning gold in the late afternoon light. Somewhere south, a hawk called, and Buster's ears tracked it across the sky he couldn't see. His right shoulder still carried a lump where the venom had scarred the muscle. His paws had healed, but the pads were thicker now, rougher, like the desert had rebuilt them out of something harder than skin. Sarah leaned her shoulder against his. "You found me." Buster's tail thumped once against the porch boards. Around cells, they don't call him Buster anymore. The old-timers at the gas station, the ranchers along the wash, the deputies who worked the case, they all use the same name. The ghost tracker, the blind dog who saw what no one else could. He didn't need eyes to find her. He never did. If this story hit you, subscribe. I tell stories like this every week. And drop a comment. Do you think Buster knew what he was walking into? Or did it not matter? I think we both know the answer.